let's set up the simplest server. We're going to make an e-commerce website in which we are using Apache server. We're using MySQL as the database, and we're going to set up the database with phpMyAdmin. Then on the other side we're going to use front end. That is, on the front end side we're going to use HTML, CSS and JavaScript, where we're going to use the fetch API to fetch data from the database. We're going to use PHP on the back end side, which is going to fetch data from this database. So let me start by simply setting up the project. So I'm going to make directory. It's called let's call it shop, and then I'm going to change directory into the shop, and then I'm going to open it with VS Code. Nice. Now that we have the project, it's going to be divided into 3 sections. We're going to have the backend, where all the PHP will rest. We're going to also have the front end, which is another folder, front end. This is where the HTML, CSS, JavaScript goes, and then we're going to have another folder called images, and here's where we're going to put our images. Now let's start by setting up the database, and so I will need to create the database called shopdb. I'm going to use the shopdb. Then I'm going to create a table called products, in which we're going to set the products. So create table products. It's going to have a product ID, product name, category, description, price and image URL. Then I'm going to insert 2 products, that's a smartphone and a HP laptop. And then at last I'm going to select all products from the table, and let me just run. Nice. And so as you can see, it's executed, and we have the 2 products, the electronics and the computers. And yeah, now back to the project. I'm going to need 2 images for the smartphone and the HP laptop, and so let me look for some images. There's the phone, so let me just drag and drop the phone and also the laptop. Nice. So we have the laptop, we have the phone. Nice. So that is done. Now let's set up the backend. We're going to use PHP, and let me create a new file. So let's call it the database connector. That's PHP. And so our database connector should help us to connect to the database, and so we're going to use MySQL improved for that. And so I'm going to need to set up some variables. We'll need a host name. Our host is localhost, since it rests within our host. Since the database is within our laptop, so we're just going to have that. And now we need the host name, the username. My username for my database is dev, and a password. My password my password is 1234. And then we'll need the database name. So my database is called shopdb, since you remember that this is how we set it. It's called we created a shopdb. Where was it? Yeah, we created the database and we called it shopdb, and so that is my database. Now let me use MySQL improved as the interface to connect to the database. So I'm going to have my SQL obj for object. MySQL object will be a new MySQL interface, and so it's going to have the host name, username, password, and database as the parameters. And so if there's a connection error, I am going to kill the connection essentially. So it's going to tell me that the connection failed, and the connection error, else it's going to work. And else should tell me that the connection was it should echo that the connection was successful. The connection is successful. And so back, let me go to localhost. That is localhost, the name of the project, shop, that's the folder, and the backend. And let me go to the database connection .php just to check if everything was okay. db connection.php. Okay. db connector, I'm sorry, it's db connector, not connection. Yeah, it's db connector.php. Now connection was successful, and now we don't need this code essentially. Now let's create an API new file, an API.php, in which we're going to use the API to connect to the front end. And so we will use the database connection, the connector, to connect to the database. And then we're going to need an API to fetch data from that database and serve it to the front end, that is the HTML. And so let's make the API. That's the PHP. Okay, so I'm going to add some headers, since the header should be content type, and our content type is application /JSON. Since I'm going to serve this data, I'm going to output the data as a JSON, in JSON format. That is the JavaScript object notation. Next, we need to include once, and we're going to include the DB connector. So I'm going to need the DB connector. And why do we need the DB connector? Since we know that it has the MySQL object that is connecting to the database, and now I need the object in order to fetch data from it. And so when you are fetching data from a database, you're going to need an SQL statement. So let me make an SQL statement, SQL, and the statement should state that you need to select all from the table. My table, remember, was product. Okay, now that's the SQL statement. Now I'm going to query the statement, so let's do the result should be the MySQL object. That so when we include when we include the database connector, we have access to this MySQL object, and now in the API I can use the MySQL object to query data from the database. And so MySQL obj, that's the object, I can query the SQL statement. And so when I query the statement, I'm going to get the results. The results will be this whole table that was created. Let me refresh. Okay, so shopdb, when I query from the database, shopdb has the products. It's going to give me this whole table back as the response, and so that will be my results. And so if the number of rows in the results table, if results number of rows, if the number of rows in the results table that was fetched is greater than 0, then we know that we have data in the database. And so what can I do? I can fetch the data. So each row is the results. If I fetch the results as an associative array, I'm going to get each row. So what I can do is I can set all this inside a while loop. So I'm going to set a while loop. Okay, let's first deal with this if statement. So if the number of rows is greater than 0, I should fetch the data, the data. And if it's more than that, I can put an else, and if it's not, I can echo back to the user that the database is empty. So let's just say the table, or let me just say no products available. No products are available. No products are available. Now if the results are there, we need to fetch the data. And so let me put a while loop, since I want to fetch the data. I want to fetch each row. And so when I fetch each row, it should be an associative array, as I said, and it's going to give me back some products. Each row is a product. And now I'm going I need the products. I need to set an array, a product array. Let me product product array, and within this array, every time I fetch arrow, every time I fetch arrow, I can set it to the product. And so let me tab. Every time I fetch arrow, I am setting it inside the products array, so such that at the end of the day, this whole products array will be filled with the rows. And so let me just demonstrate to you. At last I can echo back the data to the user. And so let me echo JSON encode, and I encode the product. And so I have encoded it in JSON format. And so if we go back to the browser, and let me now search for, the connection was successful and I was done with it. Let me remove. Now, yeah, connection was successful. Now let me just query the, let me request for this data from the browser, and so you can see api.php. And so we'll make it pretty, and as you can see, we've fetched it. It's a list of products. This is product 1, the smartphone. This is product 2, the laptop. Now that we've fetched the data, let's now put it in our front end. And in our front end, we said we're going to use HTML, and so sorry, that is index.html. New file. We're going to use some scripts .javascript, and lastly we're going to need a new file, that is styles.css. and now our HTML, let me just set up a quick page. We're going to call it shop, our e-shop maybe. Basically we liked t-shop, so we're going to call us t-shop. And since our project is called Trakor, so let it be t-shop. And in the body, it has a header. Header should just have our name. Header should have a h1, that is t-shop. And then we're going to have a main where the body is going to come in, and then maybe yeah, nothing else, just the main. So in the main we're going to set the products. So these products that we fetched from the database, we're going to set them here in the main. And so how should it look? I'm going to have a div. So this div should have products inside it. So let me just give it an ID attribute. Let's call it products grid. Nice. And so the products should appear in the products grid. Let me go to the JavaScript. Now let's first say that we're going to have our scripts, and our script should be src source. It's going to be /scripts.js, and so every JavaScript is going to come from the scripts tag. Now let's set up then. Now let's take the HTML document dot add event listener. We're going to listen for the DOM content loaded. So when the DOM content will be loaded on the page, it should run this code. So what code do we want to be executed we're going to need so whenever the DOM content will be loaded, it will just fetch the data. So fetch the products. Yeah, fetch the products. And so let me just define the function fetch products. How should it fetch? We're going to use the fetch API. We're going to use the fetch API. So fetch. Now we will give it the URL to the API, which the API is exporting the products which are encoded in JSON. And when I go to my scripts tag, I can give it the URL because fetch API takes a URL. So dot slash backend. I go to the backend slash, go to the backend slash API dot php. And then I'm going to fetch the products. Then I've fetched the products. It's going to return a response. Fetch API returns a response. So just murdered my code. So then after you've fetched, I want that response. It's going to take a response, and the response should be converted to into JSON. Now since this one encodes where is my API? So my API encodes it into a JSON string, and now when the products get to the fetch API, the response string should be converted back to JSON. And so then I can catch any errors and and then I can console dot error. And so it's going to log the errors. So the response should be turned to JSON. Then one more. Then I know when I convert the response to JSON, it always has a data object. And so let me just I'm going to take the data and when we take the data, let me just console.log. Let me log the data to just confirm that the data got reached to this endpoint. So log the data. Awesome. So back to our, this is the backend. So let me just go to the localhost, the front end. No, it's T-shop. It's shop slash front end T-shop. Nice. So let me just inspect console. Then no, the response is there. It's in JSON. Oh shit, this is the JSON is an object. Let me refresh. Nice. So this is a function, I'm sorry. Then data is going to be logged, and as you can see, here's the data. It logged to data, and now the data is in the JavaScript. Now last thing we need to do is we need to now send this data back into the HTML page, into this div. How do we do this? We are going to, here we took the data and we just logged the data. Now we essentially confirmed that the data got to our JavaScript. Now last thing we need to do is, instead of just logging the data, okay, let me shift the logic. We know the data is products. No. So what am I going to do? For each product, let me take the for each product, so products dot for each now for each product I'm going to need to log, let me log the element. So console, let's just console.log the elements, just to confirm that the data indeed got here. Error. Okay, nice, awesome. So for each product it should be logged separately. Okay, now let's do some more things with this code. Let's put it in the HTML page. So let me just split the screen. Now our HTML has a div called product grid, so I can just take it. I'm going to say const product grid should be equal to document dot get element by ID. The ID is product grid. Nice. Now we have the product grid. Okay, now for each product that I took, let me rename this thing to product. We need to, so now for each product in the array of products, we need to make a card, then insert the card inside the product grid. Let me just show you. Now for each product, let's write the code here. I'm going to say var card is equal to product, no, it's not product, document dot get element, no, create element. I'm going to create an element called let's create a div, and now so we have a card, we have a card. Now we're going to need a title, so I'm going to say let product name be equal to document dot create element. Control C. Let's create an element h3 maybe. Let's create a element called that, and so product name dot text content should be equal to the product dot get name, product dot product name. And so the product name is the name that you set in the database. So we said product name, so this name, the exact thing, is what I wrote here. Now the product fetched, the product name should be given there. And another good way to confirm this is you look at your fields, product name. This is what you got. So let's just set the product name and the image URL just for so, and then I'm going to say card dot append child, then I'm going to append the product name. Okay, so the card now has a name, so let's also create an image. So let's product image be equal to document dot create element. I'm going to create an img tag, so an image, and so product image dot URL. Okay, it's not a URL, it's an src. So image source should be equal to product dot image URL, and then I'm going to append the child. So car dot append child product image. So I have appended the product image inside the card and then the product name inside the card. Now the last thing we need to do is to put this card inside the product grid, and so last thing I need to do is product grid dot append child, and then I'm going to append the card. Nice. So with that set, if I go back to the browser, refresh, yes, we have the smartphone and the HP laptop. As you can see, we have our T-shop has a smartphone and a laptop. Last thing we're going to add is a functionality to add to cart. So basically you need a button in the scripts. You will need a button to add to cart, and so
one of those series.
Card. Let's card button equal to documents that create elements button, and so button cat button dot text content should be equal to add text content is equals to add to cart. Last thing ni okay, card append child. I'm going to append the card button. Okay, now the add to cart button is there. Last thing, we're going to, before we append, let's just cart button, add event listener, and we're going to add we're going to listen for a click event, and so on click it should do what? On click, let's just make a quick function. On click, we're going to add product to cart. So add to product to cart. So let's just define this function. Let's define the function down here. Function add to cart, add product to cart. So what we're going to do is we're going to use local storage, and so let cart, we're going to use local storage to store the cart, and so let cart equal to local storage dot get item. It's going to get the cart. It's going to get the cart, or if the cart is not there, we could fetch an empty list. And so since local storage stores string objects, and so we need to convert it back to JSON. So it's going to be JSON.parse whatever you're going to get from local storage. And now if I console.log my cart, okay, let's not log it. So we're going to get the cart from local storage, and now if there is an existing item, if what I'm adding to cart is existing, so when I'm adding a product to cart, I need to get the product. Let me just pass down the product so that here I can receive the whole product. And now the product might already be added to cart, so let's make let existing product be equal to the existing product be equal to product the cart dot find. So let me try to find the value. So let's find the product in which let me not call it product, let me call it an item. Let me find an item in which item dot id is equal to product dot product id. And so this will tell me if the product is existing. And so if the product is existing, if there is an existing product, I am going to just set the quantity existing product dot quantity should be plus equals 1. I'm just going to add the quantity of the existing product. Else I'm going to add if the product is not existing, I'm going to add the product to the cart. So else cart dot push. So I'm going to push an item into the product, into the cart. So cart dot push, let's push an object. ID, the ID is product dot product ID. Name product name is product name, and the image URL is product, image URL is product dot image URL. Lastly, the quantity should be now the existing product dot quantity. Now after pushing this object into the cart, I can say local storage. I can dot set item called cart, and then I'm going to JSON dot stringify the cart. Yeah, so on click product will be added to cart. I'll click the add to cart button, will add the product to the cart, and so it's going to set it in the local storage. So let's just Control Shift I inspect, and so let me go back to my application, local storage. Now local storage, let me refresh my page. So if I want to add the HP to the cart, one click and go to my console. And define reading quantity. So let me say let quantity equals to let quantity be equal to 1. Then I'm going to say existing product dot quantity should plus equals the quantity, and so let's check. Let's add to cart. Quantity is still not defined. How do we fix this? Oh, okay. Let me do a Control C, paste the same here, and so I'm going to just add the product without the quantity. Nice, no errors. Go back to my application. See, now my cart, as you can see, the cart now has the product smartphone. It's there. Nice. And last thing we should do is let's make another file. We're going to call it the cart.html. Now in the cart it's HTML page, and so I'm going to say let's make a h1. Let's call it my cart, and so let's also just give it a div. The div an ID of cart items. Then a script tag in which when this a script tag in where when this document, when the document add event listener, which should be the DOM content loaded. And so when the done content will be loaded, we want it to fetch the items from the cart. So when the done content gets loaded, we want to fetch cart items. Nice. And so let's just define the function fetch cart items, and it's going to go to local storage dot get item. It's going to get the cart, so it's going to get this cart, and this is a string, so I'm going to make it let cart be equal to JSON dot parse let it pass the item as JSON, or get an empty string. And now I am going to next get this div and then set the cart items into the div. And so cart items is equals to document dot get element by id. Let's call it cart item get element by id cart items. Now that we have the items, let's push this cart to that. And so this is a list. The cart is a list. If I decide to console.log the cart, and then I go to my cart, let's just first set up an anchor tag for the index, and I say back to home, so that on the index.html we should have another anchor tag for /cart.html, and it's going to say cart. Now when I refresh my page, I can go to the cart and I can now check on the console. Here's the product. Now back to my cart. Here's the div item. So what I want to do is, since the cart is a list of products, what I can do is I can fetch the cart is now an array of products, and now I can just take for each product. So I can say that cart dot for each, so for each product in the cart, for each item I can say I want to say let's create a card. So let me just copy this other code because I don't want to repeat myself too much. So let's just create a card. Card. So let's create a card, and so we create a card, we create a product image, and we create a product name. And now that we have the image and name, so I'm going to append the children. Let's do this here. So cart items dot append child card. Hopefully, if I refresh this page, product is not defined. Oh, okay. Line 28. Oh, item. So let's just console that log item. Let me sorry. Okay, so I need to give this new data to the cart. So the item has an ID, product name, and image URL. So for each item, let product image be that, and so the source should be item that image URL, and here it should be item that product name. Okay, let's refresh. Nice. Now my cart is done. So when I go back to the home, I can add to cart, can also add HP to the cart, and when I go to the cart, HP, now my cart now has the HP and the phone. Yes, and we are done.